coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast, the sort of between Christmas and New Year edition. I am Matt H and with me is Matt V. Hello Matt.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Happy Christmas and happy all the rest of it for this all appropriate season's greetings.
The main thing is I just wanted to get through Christmas as quickly as possible to get back to the podcast, really.
Oh, that's well as indeed do we all. I'm sure. We haven't got Pete this week. He may join. I'm sure he will join us at some point in the future. So it's probably going to be a couple of quick ones in a row because we've just got the one game to discuss this week. So we're doing this on hang on, what day of the week is it? It's Tuesday, isn't it? So we're doing this on the Tuesday, and yesterday it was the West Brom game. Mm-hmm. Now we had said in previous pods that we've got 6 league games coming up that we felt were eminently winnable, and we needed to get back into the swing of things after the somewhat poor performances, should we say, against City and Everton and all the various disappointments associated with that. And we did, only just though. A goal sort of 4 minutes from the end from Giroud gave us a 1-0 win over a resolute, I think that's the word you have to use for this kind of team, a resolute West Brom team who came and did pretty much what everyone thought they would. Packed the defence, did a good job, had a goalkeeper in fine form as well yesterday, but we did get the win. So it's a stuttering start, but a start nonetheless, this run of 6 games. So, I've got a few points here, but Matt, anything you'd like to open up with?
Yeah, I mean, probably wasn't the best game to watch, but I don't know if you can necessarily criticise us too much. I think it's only going to be, it's never going to be a great watch when West Brom sit back as much as they did. I think in the first half we had 80% possession. And considering how well they've played this season, I thought they might be a bit more positive. But, they just sat there, made it hard to break down. I mean, we didn't create a lot in the first half, but I don't think at any point in the game we particularly looked in trouble. It was just a case of whether we were going to get what always looked to be like 1 goal to win it. And luckily, it was the much maligned Giroud in the end.
Yeah, no, this is interesting, of course, because there's been some discussion sort of since the game that, obviously, to get to the team news, so Walcott wasn't anywhere near the squad, obviously too much coffee after his coffee machine. Although I don't want to milk that joke, although I did that. There we go. Got that out of the way now. And so Giroud in, so obviously immediately there's a change in focus, you would assume, but the criticism seems to have been that particularly in the first half, that wasn't really taken advantage of. We weren't singing it into the mixer, to use a sort of certain trite phrase, but obviously that you'd assume that would have happened at least a little bit more than it did.
Exactly. Play to his strengths, you would have thought, but I think when we have Sanchez and Iwobi on the wings, they're not really players who are going to get to the byline and cross it. They both like to cut inside, play 1-2s, play sort of intricate passes, which it works very well when you have the sort of more mobile striker up front. But when you have someone like Giroud, you need to give him the service. And for the first half, certainly, but even into the second half, we didn't do that at all. And then when we finally did get a cross in, benefited from it hugely.
Yeah, I mean, the stats are interesting reading. I mean, the possession by the end of the game was about 76% in Arsenal's favour.
Yeah.
Corners were actually very similar, but the two that sprung out to me were shots was 26 to us as opposed to 3 for West Brom, which isn't really a criticism of West Brom as such. It's just an example of our dominance, I think. And then the passes completed, we had over 700. Whereas West Brom only had 167, according to one stats thing I've seen. So that complete dominance, but obviously there, as time is ticking on, we've not the first time we've been here. You start to worry if that breach is ever going to be made, and like I say, and it was a great header in the end that did it. I mean, the defender was all over him. He did so well to get his head on it and direct it just over Foster, who, as I say, had been pretty excellent all day. He made a couple of really good saves, and indeed made a great save even after that, I seem to recall.
Yeah. We do seem to have a lot of games at home where the opposition keepers have an unbelievable game. I don't know if that says something about our finishing that we give them a chance, or just the sheer volume of shots means that there's a good chance they're going to make a lot of saves. But we do seem to really, I'm sort of thinking maybe once a month we come up in a game where, as you said, we dominate possession without really making it count, and we come towards the end of the second half in a very tense situation.
So, yeah, I mean it's been a regular refrain ever since Wellington's been to that stadium, and probably for a couple of years before that. But obviously we had a couple of slip-ups against Everton and Man City recently, yeah. But this is perhaps, whilst not what we really wanted, a nice 5-0 stroll would have been lovely. But like the Burnley game away and the Man United game away and other games, you can take the positives. You can take that kind of, well, we kept at it and got the result. It just goes to show that for all what we like to talk about, good passing, great skill, great moments, the result is what makes the difference. If you get that result, then everything is not forgotten, obviously, but much more palatable. If you can have that, you can get that goal basically and get the points. It would have been, if we hadn't got that goal, the reaction afterwards would have been so different to what it is, even though the performance is virtually the same.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw Chelsea struggle at home to West Brom. As you mentioned, our form hasn't been great recently after that week that was. And especially at this time of year when we have 3 games in effectively a week, the performance becomes secondary, really. It's just about picking up the 3 points and keeping the pressure on Chelsea. I mean, if for our 6 winnable games, if Chelsea by that point are on 20 games won in a row, then I think we have to hold our hands up and say they probably deserve to cruise to the league if they can keep that form up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but finishing second to Leicester is one thing, but that, this is a long way to go. But if someone's going to win that many games in a row, then there's not much you can do about it. I mean, hopefully that won't happen. But we can see, we can judge, we can have a think about that when we get a bit closer to it. Just going on to the goal for a second. In fact, just before the goal, because it was a great header from Giroud, but of course Ozil we mentioned last week, as did lots and lots of other people. Great cross from him, and a great cross. It was interesting that there was another great cross just a few minutes earlier, to which Bellerin, slightly oddly, was on the end of. Very similar move, but it didn't quite come off. For the goal, Bellerin was where he should be, if you like, just outside Ozil. But just looking at some stats, the most popular pass combination involved Ozil, which was Xhaka to Ozil. He was also involved in sort of a good relationship with Iwobi, with Xhaka the other way, and those 3 seem to be having sort of plenty of passing going on between them. So I don't know, it's a long way round of saying we should, as I think we did allude to last time, suggest that we shouldn't judge Ozil too much on just 1 week's performance when we know he can play more like he did yesterday. Yeah,
over the course of the season, you're definitely going to get more performances like the one yesterday than the 2 we had against Everton and City. He's been one of our best players this season, really. And while he's never going to be the person flying into tackles, that doesn't mean he's not giving everything or controlling the game as we need to be, really.
Yep, it's everyone has their place, and he seems to be doing his. We know generally speaking he'll do his very well. It's just worth giving him some positive sort of stuff, as opposed to the negative stuff he will have got from some quarters as well. Sanchez looked pretty busy as well. What I saw yesterday, again, a good thing to see given this time of year.
Yeah, obviously on the wing this time, but still look to be pressing heavily. He does seem to be taking on the role of sort of, he does seem to do things by himself, not just with pressing, but when he has the ball as well. He likes to try and turn his way out of trouble before he thinks about the pass, which obviously can lead to some moments of magic, but also lead to times where he's probably holds on to it a bit too long and puts himself under pressure. So,
I
don't know.
there's a lot of. I mean, it's very these days. We've got all the stats, we've got all the cameras, all the coverage, all the various options of different ways of looking at things, and we're taking part of this ourselves by doing this. But it's in the old days, and by the old days, I don't probably mean that long ago, just a few years ago, when you just sort of waited for those moments that changed the game. You sort of forgave people the bits that didn't work, unless that was all they did, and focused on the good stuff. So I wonder if now everyone has all this stuff at their fingertips and spends too long looking at every aspect of a player's role rather than just the outcomes, and just well, did we win or not? And perhaps that's a little simplistic, but it's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's probably more emphasis on analysing everything rather than just looking at the big picture. Probably not just from a fan's perspective, but I imagine teams do it as well, as to try and gain any advantage that they can. And probably at times you can go too far in that, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I'm actually just looking at some stats while you're talking, so I'm completely guilty myself. Just interesting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Arsenal players were the top 10 in sort of successful passes of if you take that everyone who was on the pitch as a whole. That includes Ramsey, who was above any West Brom player, even though he only came on with 15 minutes to go. Which is it's just another example of the dominance. But it's interesting. The Granit Xhaka stats leap out: 135 completed out of 141 attempts. I mean, that's superb kind of percentage. And Ozil is also over 100, 107 out of 122. It's good to see those. Sanchez not quite so good there, but that probably echoes the point you're making about trying to do a lot of things himself.
Yeah.
And it's a different position. Speaking of which, let's go slightly broader for a moment. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see Sanchez back in the role that he's played in so well, generally speaking, up until now? Was this a one-off? Is it a bit more mix and match? What do you think is going to happen there in the future?
I think if Walcott had have been fit, Sanchez probably still would have been up front.
Right.
As it was, I guess the only option really was to play Perez on the wing. And keep Sanchez up front. But, Giroud's been in decent form when he has been given a chance. And when you're playing West Brom, that's probably a game more suited to somebody like Giroud. So I think it was probably a game more just considering the circumstances. But it looks like Walcott's probably out of the Palace game too. So I imagine Giroud will probably get another chance. Although Perez came on, I think, but he seems to be being given very limited minutes. I don't know if there is a reason for that. But
no, Perez came on with 20 minutes to go, sort of for Iwobi. 20 minutes is that funny amount of time, isn't it? Particularly when you're chasing a game, there's not really much time for much sort of individual stuff. It's all hands to the pump, trying to get involved and see what comes out of it. So I don't know. Whenever I've seen him this season, whenever he's played this season, he's looked pretty good to me. But it's Wenger, I think, has in the past sometimes been somewhat reticent to sort of put too much faith in new players in too much in one go, as it were. So, and perhaps that's not unusual. Perhaps that's something that a lot of other managers do. But sometimes I'd like him to just give him a bit more freedom, if you like, to the player. Give them the opportunity, basically. Not freedom so much, but give them a chance to give them more opportunities, basically. So I don't think yet with Lucas, he's obviously a talent, a lot of money, let's give him a bit more chance. But I appreciate, on the other hand, if he doesn't quite perform, then people aren't going to be happy with that either. So it's a tricky one.
It is, yeah. I mean, he obviously scored his hat-trick when he was given a chance, and I can understand being a bit cautious to throw him in, but I think he's going to be limited up front because of the form of Sanchez. But when we have had injuries in wide positions that we have at the moment, I think I probably would have preferred to see Perez put on the wing and we keep Sanchez up front, because I think we've played our best football when Sanchez has been up front. But it's not a criticism of Giroud, because I think he's been great coming off the bench, but I would prefer to see us stick with Sanchez up top.
I think, when you put it like that, I think that, it seems obvious, doesn't it, that Sanchez, we've done well because of where Sanchez has been, and we don't need to panic too much because of a couple of duff results. We could all panic, but it probably wouldn't do us much good. So let's stick with him, and if that means giving other people opportunities where they are and not having to move him, then I think yesterday, for what it's worth, I think yesterday was a slight oddity. I think we'll see how perhaps the next couple of games go, but I think fairly soon we'll be back into that Sanchez at top and Giroud sort of getting opportunities when he can. It would be interesting if we have a more fluid approach given the opposition, but we'll have to wait and see how that works out.
Definitely.
Okay, well, I had 3 other really, really small and really not important points about the game. I was slightly thrown by the quite warm embrace between the managers before the game started. I don't know if you saw this. I was watching the highlights last night in silence because obviously Match of the Day wasn't working properly. But they looked sort of warm and chatty and, dare I say, quite friendly, which I hadn't. There's no need to comment on it particularly. I just thought it was an odd thing. It wasn't what I was expecting. Let me put it that way.
I didn't see that, but in his post-match press conference, Pulis did say that he thinks Arsenal have a stronger squad than Chelsea, which is a bit of a statement. So I don't know what his game was yesterday.
Blimey. I think Arsene does. I think he winds people up, but then I think they sort of perhaps do get on more than we think behind the scenes. As football fans, we quite often think of people in only one dimension. But I think perhaps he's had arguments with people before, but then they're actually all chums and they think each other are decent people or something. So maybe it wasn't that big a deal. Maybe it was just my prejudice surprised it. The slightly weird thing, I don't know if you saw this after the goal, that Granit Xhaka gives Giroud a bit of a kick up the backside, which is odd. Have a look at that. If you have only a gentle one, but
I didn't see that. No,
but it looks like it's quite near the sort of business area. It could be one of those ones that is a bit. He was only obviously, I think it's Xhaka that does it. I think he was only, having fun, if I can put it like that. But have a look. It's an interesting.
Oh well.
It doesn't mean anything. I just think it was an odd way of celebrating a goal. Let's put it that way. And the other thing, slightly more seriously, is it's a clean sheet, and it's the first clean sheet for some time. All right, as we've seen from the stats, West Brom weren't troubling the goal a huge amount. But that might be a nice thing to be going into the new year with if we can get a couple of those together.
Yeah, I don't remember us getting very many of those recently, so always well appreciated. I mean, obviously, quite a bit of it does have to do with the opposition, but Rondon's been in good form. West Brom have been scoring quite a few goals, and when they were needed, we dealt with it pretty comfortably. So that is good to see.
Yep, very good. I mean, our defence haven't really let us down too much this season.
No.
Not that springs to mind. But it's good to actually get a clean sheet because it's difficult to say defence haven't let us down when there hasn't been a clean sheet for a long time. But it's perhaps a bit more. Perhaps they've been a little bit unlucky. So it's good to get something that's sort of tangible. All right, so West Brom, fairly forgettable, out the way, done. 1-0, great. We'll take that. Showing fighting spirit and all the other things Arsene talks about, but we got there in the end. Now. We'll probably do this next week, so there's only one game between now and when we next do this. There might be a bit of leeway, but we'll see how it goes. But that one game is against Crystal Palace, which had the... I don't think it would have been a game anyone was particularly looking forward to or had much excitement about it, apart from the fact it's an Arsenal game. But events over the last week or so have changed it slightly because Alan Pardew is no longer the Crystal Palace manager. It is now Sam Allardyce. So does that change things for us? I mean, obviously it does, but in any significant way?
I would definitely rather be playing a Pardew side. Pardew's Palace have shown a reluctance to defend, which is always good to play against. Sam Allardyce, I imagine, will not be so free in their attacking play. I think the first thing he said was, we're going to shift our style of play the other way. Very ominous opening statement. I imagine it's going to be very similar to the West Brom game, which, is going to be another test. I think Crystal Palace, I know they haven't performed well, but I think on paper they've probably got just as much attacking threat, if not more. It's just about how much Allardyce wants to use it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Palace had a a draw away at Watford yesterday, which included a missed penalty by Benteke, and obviously Zaha and the Watford mascot having disagreements, which is rather strange. And Allardyce apparently does want the mascot banned for the year or something, so
Yes.
he's come back in with a bang, as it were, to domestic football. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see how it goes. It's a home game, of course, so as we've said lots of times, it's a game we should be expecting to win. Perhaps we can get Gunnosaurus to start mocking some of the Palace players if things aren't going well.
Sounds good.
We've got to use any weaponry on our armoury, basically, at this stage. So we should be winning. But, I mean, Benteke is obviously, on his day, quite a potential threat. So the defence will have to be pretty switched on to deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if there is any rotation or anything like that. I think in games like this, I'd probably rather see Ramsey alongside Xhaka. I know Coquelin didn't do anything wrong, but I think we probably need a bit more penetration going forward and don't need to be as defensive-minded. Be interested to see what happens with that. But I think overall we will win because I'm going to be going to the game, and if that doesn't inspire them, I really don't know what will.
Well, there we go. Oh, it'd be good to. It'd be good to get your bird's eye view, as it were, or your impression when you're there. I am going to the darts that day, so I may not be able to see as much of it as I would like, or indeed remember any of it. But I won't be drinking at the darts, I have to say, because I will be there on the by-the-minute ticket, as it were. So I will be being very well behaved, but I'll hope to catch up at some point with it all. But I'm hoping that it will be a nice, straightforward-ish home win, even with the Sam Allardyce factor, if we can call it that. Because it should be, really.
It should. Whatever effect he does have, we still should be winning it. And I don't know if we're going to talk about us facing new managers, but Bob Bradley has just been sacked by Swansea, and I'm pretty sure we play them in a couple of weeks, probably just in time for their new manager too.
Did we play? Was he the manager when he was? Our first game. Oh God, start again. His first game was against us.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Blimey, you are. I haven't got that information yet. You are right up. We're doing this on Tuesday night. You're absolutely right up on the. With all the news. Yeah, that's impressive stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we won comfortably enough, but he's gone after, 10 or 11 games. I don't know who they're going to replace him with, but I imagine it will be somebody a bit more defensive-minded, which is probably not what we wanted.
No, that's the the fourth of our 6 games that we were talking about, and the only the second away game. Of only the 2 that we have. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, we do seem to have a thing about new managers, and again, on paper, we should be beating Swansea, and everyone's beating Swansea at the moment, so we should be able to get past them, whoever the manager is, and that's only 2 weeks away. But yes, another new manager for us to worry about in the space of 2 weeks. So you wonder about this new manager bounce, or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully the other teams won't have that, and we can. I
hope they go for Pardew.
Of course, it all works. It all comes together. It does seem a bit. I mean, we're not really in the business of talking about Swansea managers, but I think that seems rather unfair to give someone less than 3 months and then get rid of him with a team that was struggling badly anyway.
Yeah, it's very harsh. I mean, especially there's not really any standout candidates. The favourite here appears to be Ryan Giggs, with Roy Hodgson also being mentioned.
Oh my God. Yes, Ryan Giggs, they keep talking about Ryan Giggs, don't they, for managers' jobs, even though he doesn't have, he's got some kind of experience at a sort of assistant level. Was he actually United manager for like a game or something? I can't remember how it worked.
I think so, yeah.
But he doesn't have I don't think, I'm not particularly impressed with this relatively new thing of getting players into quite high profile jobs when they don't appear to have had any or very little experience. No one seems to work their way up anyway, even if it's just a few months slightly, out of the spotlight, as it were. It just doesn't seem to happen anymore. And I don't think that's necessarily particularly healthy, but that's not our problem. Well,
No?
Not directly, indirectly, it's our problem, because we have to face these teams. But Well, we'll see how that goes. Well, there we go. That's a virtually live news update there on the sacking of the manager. Okay, so I'm slightly taken aback by that. I'd heard rumours he might go, but I thought give him a bit more time. Seems a bit ridiculous. Oh well, he's got more time to relax over the new year. He can he can enjoy that. I imagine he'll get a fairly decent payoff as well.
Yeah, not bad. I imagine for like 3 months' work.
Yeah, not bad at all. All right then. Well, on that basis, we'll wrap things up. We've got the Bournemouth game as well next Tuesday. We will probably try and do a pod between Palace and Bournemouth. So we won't look at that now, but that will be something for us to look at next week, along with a review of, obviously with your presence being so vitally important, a handsome Arsenal home win against Palace.
And if not, I'll probably bring a banner or something, or charge onto the pitch and rip up my ticket in front of Wenger, something like that.
Well, if you could do that, and then we can have you sort of exclusively on here.
Oh, I'll do it.
that would be marvellous. We'd have some good information. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. So thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. And we will have a good New Year's celebrations, whatever you're doing, and we will speak to you next week.